By this point, we all know that water produces wonders on the land. If you're going to farm, your miracle rests in the water on the farm. But not just getting it, keeping it as well. And so we have put swales for that purpose, to slow it, sit it, sink it in the soil. We did a slight improvement to them, and I'm going to explain that just shortly. Water on the surface is misplaced water, and it causes a problem that is threefold. One, it moves too fast and therefore doesn't last. As such, a single downpour of rain that would have sustained plant growth for days now will only sustain that growth for half of that period. But secondly, it creates a mess on its way down the hill. Rainwater, like we all know, carries everything it finds along its way. It carries the soil, it carries whatever it could find, and only leaves in place what it can't take, like the rocks. No wonder the land that I purchased had a couple of rocks on the surface. Most of its soil had been washed away by rain. But third, the roots that are going to use the soil are in the soil, not on the surface. So when the water remains on the surface, the plants actually don't benefit. So for whichever reason, the water belongs in the soil. So we have made the swales and they're beautiful, but that's not enough. The trenches were filled with a lot of soil after every downpour, and it was quite a lot of work to keep unfilling them. The same rain that enables water to be collected also causes some soil to be trapped from the top of the hill. To prevent that, we place an obstruction above the swale. We used stones to do that. Even after a long period of erosion, that soil will be trapped up and will eventually flatten what was formerly a hilly part of the hill. Over a period of time, this will translate into a terrace, relatively flat land that is cultivable. This idea of piling soil above with the hope of eventually forming a terrace is what is termed in our neighborhood country as fanya juu terraces. Though this sounds good, when it rains, this soil is likely to be washed back into the trench. But since we are instead using a line of stones above the swales, that problem is solved. By doing this, we are combining what we traditionally know as swales already with what is known in our neighbor country, Kenya, as fanya juu terraces. Now, I don't know what to call this, but it is what it is. The second thing that we did was to connect the swales so that we don't have 4 separate swales, but a network of swales. So you can see the shelter at the bottom with the 4 swales running across the garden. And then here, a channel connecting the upper swale to the lower swale, again with the shelter at the bottom. Now, to ensure that the water moves slowly, we did 3 things. First, we dug the connecting channels in circles and curves. They were not straight. Secondly, we bouldered the entire walls of the connecting channels with rocks so that the water would not dig into them, like you could see in this picture. This is what we are trying to prevent. And finally, we reinforced the floor with a staircase of rocks. So we would put a line of rocks and leave about a foot or 2, and then put another line, and then leave a foot, that sort of pattern. Getting the rocks was not a very big problem because we had them placed all over the entire surface of the garden, so it was a matter of relocating them. This would enable us that in the event that one swale filled with water, the lower swale will be able to get it. In the future, we hope that we shall be able to get water for irrigation, and we only irrigate the upper swale. And when that upper swale overflows with water, it moves to the lower swale and then the swale below that through these channels that connect the swales. So those were the 2 modifications to the swales.